Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're going to give people just a few more minutes to get online here. So we'll get started here in a couple of minutes. Okay, looks like our room is filling up here. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for being here and joining us for our webinar today. I'm your host, Shelley Mann, and I'm the VP of Marketing at Zia Consulting. In today's webinar, we have Jon Solove from Zia Consulting and Michael Bauccio from Ephesoft, and they're here to talk to you about mailroom automation solutions. Both of these guys are industry leaders and have deep expertise and experience in creating more efficient processes for companies just like yours. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to submit your questions in the comments section, the chat section, sorry, and we'll get to those at the end of the webinar during the Q&R session. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jon Solove, who's going to kick off our webinar today. Jon?
Great. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm Jon Solove, Enterprise Sales Director at Zia. I've been with Zia for about 12 years now in October. And, I've spent that time really focusing, starting on the consulting side, being in the solutions engineering side, and ending up on the sales side. But that entire time really focusing on the, everything from capture to content to process, and helping our customers find a solution that really meets their needs across a lot of different industries. So really looking forward to speaking with you all today. Michael, if you want to give a quick intro. Go right ahead.
Yeah, hello. Thanks, Jon. Appreciate it. Michael Bauccio. So I am the Southern Region Account Manager for Ephesoft / a Kofax company. So I've been with Ephesoft for about 3 years. I've been working with Jon and the Zia team all 3 years with outstanding partnership, joint customers, and really my job is to help customers like you to automate and reduce those manual processes. So I appreciate you allowing me to talk with you on this subject today, Jon.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, so today our agenda really looks like this. We're going to start talking about mailroom automation, and then we're going to continue. Excuse me. Continue with inbox automation in the digital mailroom, how we can really apply some of the hyper automation concepts to our email inboxes, to our incoming mail. Then Michael and I will talk about some use cases that we have seen with some of our customers. We'll look at the overall solution that Zia provides along with Ephesoft. And then we'll get into a demonstration, just a quick look at one of the use cases that we find really interesting around account opening and being able to automate that process. And then finally, we'll get to some Q&A towards the end of our session. So the first main topic here is mailroom automation. But I want to talk about some interesting facts that I found as I was kind of putting together some information for this webinar. So businesses receive an estimated 38 billion pieces of mail per year. So this is an enormous number. Because of that, 73% of organizations cite automated classification as the only way to keep up with the volumes of data coming at us. And of course, this goes well beyond just mail, right? This is any sort of information coming into an organization. But a good piece of this comes from the mailroom. And the mailroom is going to provide, such a large point of ingestion for all sorts of information, structured, unstructured, across, all of the different, horizontal focuses and groups within an organization. I also found this last fact really interesting and something we tend to not think about all the time, but there are 40 million fax machines still in use around the world today. So this means that when we're thinking about mail, email, fax is really something we should be continuing to keep in mind. And Bauccio and I have discussed that this is something that is still seen in a lot of the opportunities that we work today. That fax is still a very relevant part of organizations, especially heavily regulated industries like healthcare, where fax is just a standard way of transmitting information. So, mailroom automation. When we think about mailroom automation, we're really thinking about the movement of paper mail to digital documents via a scanner. So mail becomes email and it gets sent to the appropriate parties. This is really what we consider the first step in a kind of digital transformation and hyper automation approach within mail. But this is, the final step of where a lot of organizations have gotten so far today. So, the benefits here is removing the need for movement of physical mail. And, this became really hugely important for a remote workforce. Michael, even 3 years into COVID with the much larger remote workforce, are you still seeing a bigger interest in mailroom automation?
Definitely. It's probably one of our top use cases that we see here at Ephesoft Kofax. So COVID obviously provided, a unique challenge to not only us as individuals, but organizations. So having all of those individuals there at the corporate headquarters going through mail from a manual perspective, they also saw that there was a big reduction of on-site and it moved to remote workforces, hybrid workers, those kind of things. So we're definitely seeing that now that there's a limitation in terms of who can distribute that mail, it's definitely a must for organizations to figure out a way to handle large volumes of incoming documents and how to route those to the appropriate departments for sure.
Sure. And, we're seeing some organizations looking at getting back to the office, but it seems that the workforce is forever changed from this, and a need for mailroom automation and a digital mailroom is here for good. So this is something that we really heavily focus on and see a lot of interest from our customers in continuing to really pursue not only the scanning and this idea of moving from paper mail to email, but really taking the next step, which we'll talk about as inbox automation and the digital mailroom. So, we hear a lot about hyper automation, enterprise automation, digital transformation. I think a lot of this can start in the mailroom. So this to me is kind of the next iteration of mailroom automation. So we are going to start treating email and physical mail the same. We are really going to leverage technology like Ephesoft Transact to classify and extract information. So we actually know what it is that we're looking at. And this could be, content coming in via actual mail, or this can be email. We can treat that the same. We can monitor email inboxes just the same way that we can monitor scanned content that's coming in. Once we know the types of documents we're looking at and the information that's been pulled from those documents, we can route messages intelligently. And that could be just sending mail to the right person. Maybe it's just correspondence that someone needs to read. But it could also mean that we take that mail and we turn it into actionable tasks. This can be achieved through RPA with tasks assigned to individuals, or it could be deeper than that and be part of business process workflows within an organization. So mail and email both together become actionable tasks assigned to the right person. So this is this kind of next iteration, making sense of the mail. In addition to removing data entry and automating these tedious tasks, we're just allowing for the technology that is available to be able to leverage this information and automate much more heavily. There's also been a much bigger focus in AI over the last year or so since ChatGPT became, really a major topic that a lot of people are thinking about. And, utilizing that functionality as well to make sense of highly unstructured content is definitely a focus area with a lot of newer capture projects that we're seeing. Is how to go from some fully unstructured information that's coming in via mail and really knowing what that content is, what it means, and how we can apply it within workflow, get it assigned to the appropriate individuals, and automate in a way that really hasn't been available in the past. So some of the use cases that we see in this kind of venue around mailroom automation, with mail scanning, one of our customers, who's a really large insurance company, just as Michael was mentioning, mail for them became a really big problem as a result of the pandemic. And they found themselves with a mailroom that was ill-equipped to handle this remote and mobile workforce. So, before they were carting physical mail around offices, and employees not in the office really had no good path to receiving mail. So they came to us with this problem, and this was a longtime customer of ours. And we were able to solve this by just instituting a pretty straightforward mail scanning process, where that mail would come in, it would be opened and scanned by their scanners. We were able to then match the employee information that would be on the correspondence on the mail against their employee database. We then would take that content, put it in a secure repository, and then send notification via email, with the link to that content that was living in a trusted enterprise content management solution that they already had in place. So this was a relatively small project to solve a very big problem for them. They had no way of getting really important insurance related content, claims information, and the like, to the individuals that needed to do this work. So through instituting a fairly simple scanning process here, we were able to leverage their existing investments in technology around their ECM solution, and allowing the users who are now remote to do the work they needed to do. Another organization that has an interesting use case, and one that we'll kind of revisit, that's very similar to the demo that we'll show today, is a financial services organization we work with that receives emails for a lot of specific requests. Things like opening a new account, performing a withdrawal from their account, changing the address. And a lot of that information was just coming in via email. So they would get an email within a monitored inbox that would say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm interested in opening an account, and here is the form that I've filled out with all of the account information. Or perhaps it's moving funds from an existing 401k or something like that. So providing an email with the attached information that was necessary in order to open those accounts or move funds or withdrawal information. So in the past, this had always been a very manual process for this organization. They had a pool of individuals who would watch for emails to come in. They would then do, what we refer to as the swivel chair, right? You have your email pulled up with a form that might be attached to it on one screen. On another screen, you have your financial application. And really, they were typing information from one to the other. And that was a tedious process for them. So, they're really looking at a 100% email and person-driven process to do something that was really core to their overall business. So what we worked with them to implement was a solution that leverages Ephesoft to classify and extract information from the emails, both the body of the email itself, where it might actually say what the request is within text, as well as forms that are attached to those emails that would support the process that is being looked at. So in this case now, they were able to have the solution be able to grab all of the information and present it to a user, not in a form, but just in a standard individual window with a workflow task assigned to them that said, hey, please validate that this information is correct. And once they did that, it was able to assign to individuals to open accounts. And a future step of this is to then further automate to consume APIs within their other solution in order to automatically open the account. So, this is an interesting scenario for finding bite-sized pieces to bite off in order to solve problems like this. Let's solve the first problem, let's get information off of the documents. And then in the future, we solve the second problem, which is fully automating the interaction between the solution that's built out here and their existing line of business applications. So I thought this was a really interesting use case that really combines mail and email and just a hyper automation approach in order to remove these tedious tasks of having to enter information, tedious and often error prone as well. All right. So Bauccio, I think you brought a mailroom automation use case as well. You want to?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. Those are great examples. Similarly, this is a large customer of Ephesoft Zia. It's actually one of the early adopters that was looking at technology to solve their mailroom manual processing. So large financial service insurance organization. They did have distributed offices spread out, hundreds of them throughout the United States. Our initial use case actually started in and around 1 million pages per year, but current state we're doing about 25 million pages of mailroom, which is physical and digital documents per year. So the before state was, as you can imagine, large staff employees doing manual classification, separating of documents, in some cases, separator sheets, barcoding, those kind of things. Having to classify individual documents and then keying in that information or routing those documents manually to individual departments. So they leveraged our solution to tackle one area of their business first, and then subsequently they have basically branched out to many other areas of their business. So we're definitely, from a value perspective, or accelerating that processing time. Utilizing our IDP solution for capture, image enhancement, classification, and extraction. But really what that ultimately meant to the business was, lowering their costs, accelerating turn times, and better access to that information in a more timely manner. We also are working with this client currently with our advanced ICR solution for documents that come in that have handwriting requirements. So we've worked, Zia and Ephesoft have worked on some pretty substantial handwriting use cases, and some of the documents that they receive have those handwriting forms. So we're able to actually leverage that as well and move those pieces of information to those appropriate documents. But yeah, this is a great customer, about 10 years of Ephesoft. So they're doing some wonderful things, not only in and around mailroom automation, but we're doing other automation projects throughout their business.
Great, thank you, Michael. And I think the handwriting piece there is really interesting because the later versions of Ephesoft that we've seen be released allows for leveraging those advanced OCR tools. So whether you're using the Google Cloud Platform or Azure, some of those technologies around handwritten OCR have opened up a lot of use cases that were just not things that we could look at in the past with high accuracy, and being able to consume those those tools via the Ephesoft platform has really opened up some interesting opportunities in areas that just weren't touchable or were hard to justify in the past. All right. Thank you for that. I'd like to talk a little bit about kind of the high level view of how we look at the digital mailroom, digital automation around mailroom. What this really comes down to is that a lot of what we're talking about here really lends itself towards the overall overarching concept of enterprise automation or hyper automation. we're used to talking about mailroom automation as, ingestion of documents and processing those in some way through orchestration, through intelligent capture, through RPA. And mailroom automation really is a flavor of hyper automation here. So when we're looking at the kind of overall diagram here, the left side of this is us ingesting from mail, from email, from wherever this content may be coming in, and providing intelligent capture through Ephesoft, and making sense of this content. Again, this whole idea of informing process based on the types of content that we're dealing with is really core to the these overall processes. You have to know the types of documents you're looking at, and then you can apply whatever business process you need. Apply bots, apply really any of this. So, the kind of left to right here, of course, is ingestion of content, intelligent capture of that content, and then using business process to orchestrate RPA, to orchestrate integration with other solutions. And then, ultimately have this in a location, in a repository, that you can apply governance and that is trusted by the organization. I think an added benefit of this is that idea of once you have your content, whether it's coming in through email, through physical mail, or really any other way, once it's followed this pipeline, you get to a point where you have content and you have data, and therefore you can apply AI ML to it. You can be applying governance and ensuring that you're meeting regulatory need. You can ensure that you are meeting all of the privacy requirements that are necessary within your organization and within your industry. And that all starts at this first step, this first ability to be able to grab that information regardless of its origin, and beginning this process, which I see as the first step of mailroom automation. Michael, I'd love to hear kind of what sorts of interesting integrations you're seeing that kind of fit into this overall pipeline.
Yeah, definitely. The nice thing about our solution is the ability to integrate. So think of us as the data provider to those downstream systems. If we look at financial service integrations, typically ERP systems, very key to be able to feed those systems in order to provide that data to get, let's just say, invoice documents or invoice out quickly. But really, we're agnostic in terms of when it comes to what can we integrate to. So we can integrate to financial services systems if you have enterprise content repositories, RPA systems, workflow tools, really any system. We're actually going to feed that data to provide that hyper automation in the beginning of your slide there on the left-hand side to those systems downstream. So that's important because typically those systems are either having information either manually put into the system and or drag and drop without any really key relevant information that is searchable, or the metadata that we're extracting into the system. So I would just say, look, we can, whatever type of system you're working with downstream, we probably integrated with Zia.
Yeah, and that's definitely the the benefit of working with a value-added reseller like Zia is that experience in working with both the Ephesoft side, and the myriad of integration points that are downstream. Yeah, just as you said, the idea of capture really feeding other systems is where we focus, right? There's data and it needs to go somewhere and it needs to be actionable, and those integrations are what provides that functionality. Are you seeing an increase in RPA interest? I know it's something that we've seen, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on RPA.
Yeah, definitely. RPA is obviously a very key piece of the hyper automation puzzle. So I believe we're definitely seeing an increase in RPA and workflow type technology, just because, as we mentioned, organizations are changing the way that they've actually functioned due to COVID and the way that the workforce has changed as well. So having that automation is key. But as I mentioned in my previous comment, RPA is only as good as the data that is provided to it. That RPA has to work and react to information that is actually fed to that RPA machine or bots. So again, that's where we come in. We're the data provider to that RPA or that workflow engine that you might be currently using. But I definitely see an uptick in process automation from that. If you look at the overarching hyper automation slide, I believe that RPA and BPA are workflow or business process management are key. But again, that upfront capture, intelligent document capture is probably the most important, because that's what's going to actually have all of the reaction for that workflow.
Yeah, agreed. And one other thing that I'm now thinking about, now that you've mentioned kind of ERP, I think there's interesting overlap here between mailroom automation and just AP in general. This mailroom automation concept, we're watching for what comes in, right? And whether that's an invoice, a PO, packing slips, bill of lading. Again, it's this concept that regardless of how it's coming in, or what it is, we can make sense of it and apply the appropriate workflow. So, this is, again, this idea of being able to capture the content appropriately up front and make sense of it, and then using that to drive decisions and drive process down the pipe. I don't know, is really interesting and really broad in what can be done. Okay. So we're going to do a pretty short, interesting demo here that I'll show a video in a minute here, but to kind of get an idea of what we're looking at, we're going to show a demonstration around account opening request processing. So this is very similar to the first use case, or I believe the second use case that I showed, where we have a robotic process, a bot that monitors an inbox. The RPA routes requests to Ephesoft, and then depending on the request and the data, different workflow processes are invoked. So this is all around account opening. So that same idea, an email comes in, that email has a form that we'll take a look at. The RPA is going to recognize the type of request it is, route it to Ephesoft. Ephesoft makes sense of it as far as pulling the appropriate information off of that. So we know the full name, we know the address, we know the type of account that needs to be opened, and then that's going to be automated. So we will have in the background RPA and Ephesoft working, and we'll see that in the demo. But in reality, we have this very streamlined process where an individual sees a task assigned to them where they need to validate that information is correct. They hit OK, and an account is opened. They don't have to be looking in an email inbox. They don't have to be, monitoring capture. They don't have to be aware of a lot of the background process that's happening. They don't have to do data entry. They're really just focusing on the core, their core job, which is not data entry. So the outcome of this type of approach is that there's no manual data entry, you have confirmation of data only, and you've achieved a degree of automation that is really high and has a high accuracy rate. So that's the demo we'll look at here. So I'll probably click and pause this a few times, but this is just a very basic account opening document. This is just giving information around our applicant name, the type of document, our address, things like that. So this document will be emailed into a monitored inbox. So we're showing the inbox here, but in reality, this is not some inbox that an individual is checking. This is an inbox that an RPA bot is monitoring for new content. But we see within this, we have a couple different account open requests from individuals, and each of these have that form with their corresponding data in there. So in the background, we can see that the RPA solution that is monitoring the inbox is seeing that there are 3 new emails in and is spinning up these tasks accordingly. That task, as we mentioned, is just going to send this information off to Ephesoft to understand what it is. At this point, it knows it's an email with an attachment, and that's about it. Within Ephesoft is providing the OCR classification extraction. It's knowing what type of request we're looking at and the data that's relevant on that request. So, so far, no human interaction up until this point. So once the information is processed, we know what's on the document. It can be assigned to an individual who can validate, is this John Doe with this birth date, with this address? If not, new information can be entered. But it's just validation. It's just confirmation that the information is correct rather than data entry. And this is set up in a way such that the task is assigned to the individual. We don't have to be, looking for the work we need to do. The work finds us instead. So with each of these, we can click open account, and that is going to create the account request within the line of business application. And then as a result of that, an email shows up to, thank that person for requesting an account, giving them information about the account that they've opened. And that's kind of the end of this flow. They now have an opened account that was really created off of a single email to that individual. Now, if there are QA requirements, if there are quality requirements or other need for individuals to be able to look at this information, that's perfectly fine, and that can be implemented here. But what we're showing here is kind of the clearest path with as little interaction as possible. So again, to the end user who doesn't necessarily care that Ephesoft is running in the background, that there is an RPA solution running. What this starts at as is just an email in an inbox. They're never even monitoring this. This is just the bot that is seeing it. To them, all they're seeing is an account open request with some information in it. And then the requester is seeing an email that their account was opened. So this very straightforward, simple process driven off of email that previously could have been many steps along the way of entering information, of validating, of passing documents around. That's all been simplified a lot here to ensure that the process is as streamlined as possible. All right. So that's the end of the kind of core demonstration and webinar here. But I'd love to pass it over to Michael to talk a little bit about Ephesoft and yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, John. So yeah, just talking a little bit about Ephesoft if you're not familiar. Ephesoft was actually recently acquired by Kofax, which we're excited about. Kofax being one of the leaders in the intelligent, basically document processing space or IDP space. So we basically combined our technology. We focus, or at least Ephesoft focuses 100% on capture or intelligent document processing. So as you probably know, there's a lot of organizations out there that handle multiple different functionalities that come in and around automation, but we're focused 100% on that capture piece, making sure our technology is solid and sound and true, and that we are getting that accuracy for when we start to classify, extract, and then deliver that data to downstream systems. So we have been in existence for over 12 years. We have about 1,200 customers. We've been working with Zia for over a decade. They're our premier preferred partner, and we've done hundreds of use cases with Zia. Not only just mailroom automation, but sky's the limit. We've done a lot of unique use cases to solve a lot of the hyper automation challenges that organizations have. So very excited to be on this presentation today with Zia, and looking forward to hopefully maybe working with some of you all in the future. Thanks, John.
Great, thank you, Michael. And yeah, Zia Consulting, we've been around for 20 years this year, and we are headquartered in Boulder. Our mission is providing, content, process, and capture solutions for our customers. And we have a really big focus on enterprise automation, hyper automation, and really just making it easier for organizations to do the work that they need to do. We're an award-winning platinum system integrator of technologies like Ephesoft, and we have a proven track record of delivering successful solutions on time and within budget, with a retention rate of 95%. But really, we focus on content problems, and we solve those problems. I'd love to see if there are any questions in the audience.
Yeah, thank you. Thank both of you for sharing your expertise. Let's look real quick and see what kind of questions we have.
Okay.
Okay, our first question here is, we've started down this path before, but have had trouble getting started because it seems like such a big lift. How do we get around that?
Yeah, no, this is a really, really common concern, right? This seems like it could be potentially a big problem to solve, right? When we're looking at kind of this full hyper automation or enterprise automation approach, where we have all these technologies and we're looking at 100 different processes within our organization, yeah, that seems like too much to bite off. What we typically do is work with our customers to find a really high ROI scenario that we can look at first. Maybe it is like we saw here, an account opening request, and we can get technology in place like Ephesoft and an RPA solution to really just bite off one process at a time. Let's start there, let's find ROI, and then let's move on to something else. This doesn't have to be a big bang approach where we're doing 2 years of implementation to be able to see benefit. Let's start small, let's find wins, and then let's move on.
Yeah, that's great. Getting that low-hanging fruit and seeing some benefit from the process, right? Let me see here. Another question we have is, how does this kind of automation impact our current employees?
Sure. So this is a really common question when we talk about automation. There's a fear of technology replacing people, and honestly, we don't really see that. What we see instead is people having a job they like more, or doing less tedious work, and being able to focus more on their core high value tasks instead of doing things like data entry. So, this is something we hear and speak to really regularly, is this overall concern. But in reality, we just allow for more work to be done by implementing this. You work alongside the technology, not replaced by technology. Right.
Yeah,
Anything
exactly.
else?
Michael, do either of you have, that's the only 2 questions that I have right now. Do either of you have anything you want to leave our attendees with today?
What I'd really like to leave with is that we'd love to hear from you. We'd be really happy to meet for 60 minutes to do a needs assessment, see if the solution is right for your organization, and to help you understand what that first bite could be. What is the process that we can look at with you to automate, to find ROI, and to find a fit for the solution. So we'd love for you to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to meet up.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. And thanks again, Jon and Michael, for sharing this information and your expertise in the field. We will be sending a link out with the full webinar soon. And please reach out to us and contact us with an opportunity to sit down and look at your unique business needs. So thanks again for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Great. Thank you so much.